So first things first, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
How are you?
Yeah, doing well, doing well. Check 1, 2.
Yes, we're good.
Great.
Okay. So, before we get into the new album, I'd like to go back a little bit. Do you remember when you realized that music meant a little bit more to you than it did to most people?
Music in general? Yeah, I was about 5 years old.
Okay.
I grew up in a very small town in upstate New York, up near Lake Placid, where the Winter Olympics, and also very close to Montreal. It was a small farm town, and my family ran a grocery store, small grocery store, and my father would buy the jukebox singles from the same people he would buy beer or cigarettes for the store. And those were my toys as a child. So it was, I knew right away. I mean, I was obsessed with music as a child, and yeah, that's where it started. And yeah, I suspected it might be different than the other kids I knew all the way through high school, and yeah.
Were there one or two that stuck out, if you look back now?
About 10,000 that stick out.
Well, we don't have time to go through
yeah.
Is there one or two that had a big impact on you?
Well, I mean, the groups of that time, like, the Beatles, Beach Boys, Hollies, all the Motown records, groups like the Mamas and Papas, the Association, I remember buying the Monkees albums. I would get to buy 1 or 2 albums a year. so I mean, a lot of the mid-'60s, sort of radio popular music, and that was...
When did you start writing? Was it quickly after kind of...
Yeah, I started writing songs. The earliest songs that I still have in my possession, I wrote when I was 9.
Okay.
And my grandfather bought me like a reel-to-reel tape recorder, so I would use that to record these songs. And I had a plastic organ, one of those ones where the air goes in, and it has 2 octaves of keys, and then 12 buttons, 6 major chord and 6 minor chords. So, I would learn, I would hear music and I would be able to learn it right away. So just, I would hear a song on the radio or I'd play a single and I could copy it right away. So when I was 9 years old, I would start writing songs, and I had my own publishing company and the whole thing. I mean, I used to memorize the labels of all these singles. So, I mean, I understood, that there were publishing companies and songs had to be less than 3 minutes to be on the radio. And I mean, as a kid, I understood all this. So
that's very interesting that you were already in that mindset at that early of an age.
Yeah.
When was the last time that you listened to any of those tapes?
The
very old ones.
All I have is the sheets that I wrote, with the title and my publishing company, and then the lyrics and sort of chords, like this is a C to F to G to that kind of simple shorthand, and it's the same shorthand I still use.
Okay. But can I assume then that there was no plan B, so to say, that music was, from that moment, music was it?
I got distracted for a few years, maybe from when I was 12 till about 14, changing, playing sports, doing other things. I mean, music was always there, but maybe not as essential as when I was a small child.
Right.
And then, in high school, I would listen, I was listening to the same music other people, Fleetwood Mac or, whatever, disco, and thinking, this is okay. But then I started listening to a lot of, hard rock, like Aerosmith and Kiss and that thing. And then punk rock happened. And when I discovered punk rock, then that was the door opened again,
Right.
and I said, I have to do this, you know.
For somebody, because I wasn't alive in that time, what was it like with punk arriving and having that alternative voice, so to say, kind of reach out to the youth?
Well, okay, at the time in the mid-'70s, popular music was, sort of like disco and things like that, but there were a lot of magazines about rock music, so you would have to, buy these magazines, like Circus or Cream or Rock Scene or Crawdaddy, and you read these articles about these, bigger-than-life musicians. So, I would do a lot of that, and that was one of the ways that I found out about punk rock, because in these magazines they would be talking about these groups from England that were very different, or all these groups from New York that were very different, like Television, Talking Heads, and Ramones, or Sex Pistols, Buzzcocks, Clash, The Damned, all these things. So I'm reading this. So now I have to go, I have to get my father to drive me 1 hour to a town that has a record store so that I can go buy these records, So this is, back in the mid-1970s, finding out about music was a lot different than it is now.
Right.
So it was a lot of work, and so I had to really read and understand, and then I would buy this music and listen to it, and I couldn't get enough of it. I was learning guitars, and then when I heard the Ramones, I was like, okay, I should be able to figure this out. If they can do this and have a record this great, I should be able to do this too. So.
In that sense, was there a turning point, maybe your first show or something like that, where you thought, I actually can do this?
Well, that album opened the door. I mean, I was trying to learn hard rock songs, and I sort of learned things, but then again, punk rock was just so direct, and not a lot of solos, and not a lot of extras, no limousines, no private planes, no cocaine, I don't think. It seemed attainable, like I could do this. So that's what I think made it, so appealing to me. As far as shows, I mean, I would go to concerts in Montreal at the arena, at the Montreal Forum, and I would see, I went to see Aerosmith, I went to see Kiss, I saw Rush, I saw these things, but as far as punk rock, I mean, the show that really did it for me was the Ramones were playing in Montreal at the university in like a theater that maybe held 1,500 people. And they were opening for Iggy Pop. And that was, I think, was that like The Idiot, maybe, that era? Maybe it was, so, Iggy was, it was that kind of time for him. But, the Ramones, they had 35 minutes as the opening act, and they just came out and, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 songs, stop for 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 more songs. And I was like, okay, yes, I can do this.
So was it then, because obviously that you then formed Hüsker Dü, what was the ambition, so to say, with when you started out with that band?
Well, I think, when I look back now, I think a lot of it was the same as anything that I would do when I would move to a new place, because I grew up in upstate New York, so I go 1,200 miles to go to Minnesota, to the Twin Cities to go to college. So, I have people in my dormitory and friends and roommates and things, so I'm meeting all kinds of people, but, I'm looking for other people who like this music. So when I meet Grant, and we immediately became friends because, we were, listening to the same kind of music and, had the same ideas about things. We thought, maybe we should start a band. I remember him saying, "Do you play an instrument?" I said, "Yeah, I play guitar." He's like, "Prove it." You know, I said, well, come with me. You know, I go back to the dorm and I show, you know, and he'd be like, oh, okay. He's like, well, I play drums, I play keyboards. I'm like, oh, we should start a band. He's like, I know someone who plays bass, works at a different record store. So, you know, it was mostly a way to, you know, sort of a way to meet people.
Okay.
And also, you know, in Minnesota, like where I, you know, the same as where I grew up, you know, it's incredibly cold. The winters are very long. So you're indoors all the time. Right. So, you know, for 6 months of the year, you're inside, so you have to do something. So you rehearse, you write songs.
That's an interesting point, because kind of where I wanted to go was with that band. I think there were 6 albums between 1983 and 1987, which is quite prolific. Yeah. There were a lot of, you did write and work a lot. Mm-hmm. So was that part of it, that it's just, well, it's too cold to go outside, let's just write some songs?
I think that's part of it. I think also, you know, we were all writing, you know, just writing so many songs, and we were always touring. When we would go on tour for, let's say, when we would tour when Metal Circus comes out, we're already playing songs that will be on Zen Arcade. Mm-hmm. I think the worst that it got was towards the end of Zen Arcade Tour, we were playing things that were on New Day Rising and things that would be on Flip Your Wig. Right. So, right. And you know, and again, growing up in the 1960s, I mean, the Beatles put out two albums a year, so why not?
Mm. It's almost because these days that doesn't happen anymore.
Well, I mean, people release songs every 2 or 3 months, you know, and maybe the album is maybe less important now to young people, but yeah. So I mean, we were, you know, I think we were just copying what we knew as kids. You know, you have to have 2 albums a year. You have to tour all the time. Yeah.
When you were releasing those albums, were you aware of you probably couldn't have been, but were you aware of kind of the impact it would have on kind of the punk landscape and the alternative music landscape?
Not as we were doing it until maybe the end, somewhere in 1985 we knew. I think it was, maybe 1985 we started to realize that, you know, we were doing something. I think we were one of a number of groups that was changing the way people listen to music. I think, you know, I think I can speak for the band when there's a publication in New York City. It was a free publication called Village Voice, and there was a music critic named Robert Christogal. And they would have year-end best albums every year, and all the music journalists from America would vote on records. And I remember that we had 2 albums in the top 10 the same year. Wow. And then I'm thinking, okay, people are watching us now. People are watching what we do, and they're paying attention. And it's clearly, there's like Madonna, Bruce Springsteen, Hüsker Dü, U2, Hüsker Dü replacements, you know, and you're sort of like, oh, okay. So then you know, right? Then you're like, uh-oh, everybody's watching.
But that's an interesting list, I said, the way you put it, because then you have Madonna and those type of people who are very pop, very mainstream, and then you have you guys who are very alternative. Mm-hmm. So what was that like, being accepted as an alternative band in a way?
Well, to be put in that category, I mean, we were happy that the work was recognized, but I think also, when I look back, it's, you know, then it's the beginning of problems also. Okay. You know, because then things are all different. You know, you're no longer just this band that makes music, but now you're this important band. Right. And you know, I mean, sometimes your ego can change. Sometimes your desires change. Sometimes your goals can change. And you know, and also, you know, how the business changed. I mean, then we went to a major label, and that was a new kind of pressure that I don't think we understood. I mean, we knew what it would be like, but you never know the sort of the pressure and some of the maneuvers that the business will do until you get there. You know, I mean, you know, when you get into that league, you know, if you don't understand the rules, you know, and we're still trying to be a punk rock band. We want to manage ourselves and do all the, you know, and they're like, oh, no, you have to hire all, you know, all these people. And we're like...
And I mean, we don't have to get into it really, but this is, I think, also around the time that you mentioned the people around you and that your manager passed away, right? And then that was, I think you said about this, that this was kind of the end of, the beginning of the end in a way.
It was definitely part of the end. You know, I think I could go back maybe 6 months earlier, you know, maybe the middle of 1986, when we're on Warner Brothers and all these things. You know, I think that was when the band really started to end. You know, I think everybody started, you know, becoming different people. You know, I know, you know, for Greg, the bass player, he moved about an hour away from the cities and was living in a small town and had a business. You know, I think Grant was spending more time with different people and different, you know, he was taking on different things that he wanted to explore. And I quit drinking. And, you know, I think that's so when everybody goes from doing this to doing different things and all that outside pressure, of course things will change.
After the band broke up, were you disillusioned with the music industry?
Yeah. A little bit. I mean, I wanted to stay in it, but I was a little bit lost, you know. I mean, I had this thing for 8 years, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And at this time, I'm up in a farm, you know, away from the cities, and I'm, you know, just working by myself on music, and I have no idea what's going to happen, you know. So, disillusioned, well,
might be too strong a word.
Yeah, maybe not disillusioned, but you know, just I think I felt a little bit more lost and, you know, separate from the business, and wanting just to sort of heal myself and make music for myself and make music that was different from what I had done. So that was.
With that said, then, how important was Workbook for you?
Incredible, yeah. What do you think people would have thought if I had made a record that sounded like my old band?
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do, yeah.
Yeah. They'd say, well, why did he leave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But creatively, because it was another direction, when did you write? Were these songs... was your musical taste already developing as you were in Hüsker Dü? Or did those songs already come up?
I think the only song that may have been like an idea or a sketch at the time would have been maybe Compositions for the Young and Old. But everything else was pretty new. Okay. You know, all of it was written up on the farm after the band broke up. I was listening to, because I was not on the road and I was not involved every day with music, I started listening to different things. I was listening to a lot of world music, especially Celtic music. I had a friend who worked at a record company called Folkways, and Folkways is an American label that would reissue like American music, you know, Appalachian bluegrass music, or early conjunto, Texas Mexican music from the war or something. So I was hearing all these different things. So it was this learning these new styles of music and language, and trying to, you know, and it would affect my writing. So that was sort of how that happened.
Unfortunately, I have to fast forward a little bit over Sugar.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Well, this is, I was looking at the time.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask one question, because again, it was 4 albums from 1992 to 1995.
Yeah, it was Copper Blue, Beaster, Fuel, and then the collection of B-sides, which was about 16 songs. So that was, yeah.
Being in that band again, because you did a solo record, or did you do two?
I did two solo, then Sugar. Yeah.
So what did you miss being in a band while you did those solo records?
Not necessarily. I mean, the 2 records I made with Anton Fier and Tony Maimone were great records, and we toured a lot together. And you know, it felt like a band. I mean, it was my name, and I was in front, but you know, after changing to Sugar, working with David and Malcolm, I mean, at first I thought it would be another solo project, but as we worked together and rehearsed and learned all of these songs that became Copper Blue and Beaster, it felt good. It felt more like a band. You know, it was not first class travel and all that. It was 3 guys in a van again. So yeah, I made the decision to give it a band name, Sugar, and treat it more like a band. Again, you know, I'm the main writer and the front person, and so, but yeah, it felt more like a band, I think so, compared to the Workbook Black Sheets period.
Because, well, Workbook was the first solo record. I believe now with Sunshine Rock, that's number 12.
I have no idea how many.
Mistaken.
I should count, but not right now.
But before you went and wrote Sunshine Rock, you decided to take a leave of absence for a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Why was this important at that time?
Well, I mean, this decade has been incredibly busy. You know, at the end, you know, in 2009, I started writing, you know, my autobiography, and that came out in 2011. You know, I was doing some of the work with Foo Fighters started up. You know, 2012, it was the 20-year anniversary of Copper Blue. I was writing a new record, you know, which became Silver Age. So the reissues and Silver Age came out together, very successful. And during that cycle, during that campaign, you know, my father passed away, which was tough, you know, because he was the one that brought music to me. So that was a lot to consider. He had it was a long end for him with cancer. And, you know, so I mean that, you know, all of that I took into the next record, Beauty and Ruin, which came out in 2014. And during that, you know, my mother passes away again from cancer. So it's a lot to consider.
Right.
So all of that affects 2016 and Patch the Sky. And, you know, I have no time to stop in all of this, you know, no time, you know, but it's, you know, it weighs heavy on me, and it's in the work, and the work is getting heavier again. And, you know, it's, you know, so I knew that I needed a break, you know, for my health and for myself and for the work. And that was at the time when I started thinking about Berlin and started going to visit and spending time and meeting, you know, reconnecting with old friends in Berlin, and just, you know, and just, you know, it was like a new experience, a new place that had less to do with San Francisco, where all of these things, you know, San Francisco is wonderful, and, you know, I still go back, but all of these things happened there, and it was just like, okay, maybe I need to change a little bit and see what happens. So this is the beginning of the 3 years that leads up to this record.
Right. And there's a line in Sunny Love Song, it's a long way from California to Berlin.
So filled with melancholy. Yeah.
So what was the appeal of Berlin? And like you say, what got you out of, because obviously that's a very mentally and physically tough time to go through with your parents. So yeah. What kind of turned things around a little bit? What made you ready to write again, and then to not make it, because it is quite an energetic and lively album, so it's not very dark. So it
has in the middle, but not the whole record. Yeah. I just think a change of scenery, a change of lifestyle. I mean, I don't, I went there speaking and understanding no German, so it's everything all day is like, okay, I'm sort of an idiot, just floating through, and I have to watch other people and learn how people do things, and so that's all, it's just like it's all new, sort of new behavior. But then, then I start my old routines. I get up in the morning and I, work on music, and then I go to the gym, and then I come back and I work on music. And if the music is no good, I go for a walk or I go to a museum. So, I mean, it was just, it's sort of reconditioning, myself in a new environment. So that's what, I've lived in a lot of places, and I know cities before I go, but I never know how it will be, because that's, sure, you can't predict.
It's different visiting than actually living there.
Yeah.
I think it's the same song, but there are a couple lines. Winter came and paralyzed me, but you mentioned songwriting as well. And so, what was your? I don't. Struggle isn't the right word. I can't find the right word. But what was your kind of engagement with songwriting in that period, or going from kind of the darker period to where you?
Well, I mean, there were a few songs early in the writing that were, a little heavier. They were poppy, but they were heavy. And then when the idea of Sunshine Rock came to me and it became a song, it was like, there we go. Now this is something I can really think about. I'm trying to be more optimistic, and now I've got this idea and this title and this song that's really bright, and this will start the record. And it just went, that was the direction. And once I had sort of a place to, sort of almost like a coat rack, and I could hang my coat here, and then I'm like, oh, now I can put all my other things around this. I could put my light jacket, my heavy jacket, my scarf, and my umbrella, and all these things can hang on this now because it's here. So,
was there something specific then that set off that idea of Sunshine Rock? It's a number of moments, just events that happened in Berlin, going to this place, and the fireworks, and going, the trains, and just all the, it was just sort of it's sort of a telling of a few pieces of stories, one specific moment, and then a few other moments that relate. And, to put all of that together and wrap it in a very sunny musical paper, and then it's, oh, there it is. And then that unlocked the door again, as seeing the Ramones unlocked a door, then it's, with records, it's always that way. Okay. You get the one moment that sort of shows you that the door is open and you can do things. And then, at that point it becomes, for me, it's the same with most records. Now I have a beginning. Where shall I end? And here's how the journey will start, and here's the destination. And how do I get from here to there? Yeah. And I have sort of a mechanical process. It's almost like architecture when I build albums. It's like there and there. What ends the first side? How do I turn the record over and start the second side? Where's the best pop song? Is that number 3, of course, and then, so I mean, I have these models that these architectures that I use for all the records. Very, very quickly, these architectures, were they born then when you were 9 years old and you were going through all of it?
That's where I learned it. And look at the Hüsker Dü records. It makes no sense at all. Song 3. It's.
Final question then. Yeah. When you were that age, 9 years old, did you envision kind of the musical career that you've had, or are you still having?
No, but I mean, I knew. It's funny. I have this. I have a book at home, and it's called Professional Rock and Roll, And it's one of these, it's a book for teenagers, and I remember getting it when I was young. And it was, you know, all of these different chapters about how to start a band, how to buy equipment, how to go on tour. And, you know, and I look back at this now, I still have the book, and I look at it, and it's like, it was like, you know, very famous people in the music business were writing these chapters. So, you know, so I read this book as a child, and I had this music, and, you know, so I did not envision where I am now, but I mean, I've studied for it my whole life. You know, so
I think that's a great ending.
Cool.
Bob, thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you. I hope this is okay.
Yeah, it's excellent. Thank you.